Hey everyone, thanks for joining Learn to Play Games. My name is Lance, and today I want to teach you how to play Tome the Light Edition. This is a new game by Reversal Games. It is a 3 to 4 player game that takes roughly half an hour to 45 minutes to play, and is a competitive team-based game. So in this video, I'm going to teach you how to play, starting with components, setup, player turns, and endgame conditions. As always, if you find these videos helpful, if you like what I do, please consider hitting that like button and subscribe to my channel. It's one of the easiest ways you can support channels like mine, so we can continue to grow and produce this content. If you want to stay updated on all my videos, also consider hitting that bell so you get notifications anytime I release new stuff. So let's head to the table and I'll teach you how to play. I'd like to start by breaking down the two different types of cards included in the game. The first type are the basic spell cards, and these are going to have a black border around them. These are going to be further broken down into 4 decks of cards that are going to be the 4 different elements: fire, earth, water, and air. In later expansions, those are going to include additional decks of basic spell cards that you can mix and match, creating your own custom game. Each one of these cards in the deck is going to have a number up in the top corner, ranging from 2 being the lowest or weakest spell, all the way up to F being the strongest spell. Each one of these cards will also have the name of the spell in the top, as well as the icon of that spell, listed in the top here, as well as in the image in the center of the card. At the bottom of each card is going to be the effects of that spell and when they're going to come into play, with some of them being when the spell is played, or others will have different conditions that will be required for that spell to be triggered, with the flux spells, or the most powerful spells, not having any effects to resolve with them. The other deck of cards you're going to include are the special cards, and these are going to have a white border around them. Other than that, they are also going to be numbered from 2 to F, will have a name and an image of their element, with this deck being the light deck. And unlike spells, they do not have a spell to cast, they are going to have a property. So all light spells are going to have this spell is stronger than any other non-trump spell. And I'll explain how that's going to work a little bit later. And just like with the basic decks, in further expansions, they will add additional white decks of cards that you can change out for your special spells to make each one of your games unique. From there, let's move into setup. So first off, Tome has a couple of different ways you can play it: the standard version, and then there's also a survival mode in the back of the rulebook. For this video, I'm going to teach you the standard version of the game. So first off, you're going to start off by creating your deck of cards. You're always going to use 4 of the basic spell decks and then 1 special deck. And as expansions come out, you'll have more variety that you can switch and swap out some of these decks of cards. So from there, you're going to gather up all your cards and give them some solid shuffles. And then you're also going to break your players off into 2 teams. Each team is going to sit across from the other team so that it is in a plus pattern, so that you will never have both players on the same team taking one turn right after the other. So in order to do that, you're also going to choose one player to be the scorekeeper for their team and give them 2 scorecards. Each scorecard is going to have a backside with numbers 1 to 9 and a top side that is going to list a 0 and a 10 to keep track of. So throughout the game, as you score points, you're simply going to slide that card over until you get to the 9, then you'll turn it around and start again so that you can keep track of your score. So I'll have my player here keep track of this team's score, and then for the team going across the table, I will have my player over here keep track of that. From there, we're going to go ahead and shuffle our cards together. Okay, so once you have your deck of cards all shuffled together, you're going to choose one player to be the starting dealer, and that player will take the deck and deal out 6 cards to each player. Once all players have 6 cards, you'll have 6 cards remaining in your hands, and you can place those in the center of the table. Tome is played over an undefined number of rounds, and each round is broken down into 6 chapters that are going to be defined by the element deck. The dealer is going to start each chapter by revealing the top card of the element deck, which will become the title card, which is also going to signify which suit is going to be trump for that particular chapter. This is going to continue until one of the teams reaches 15 points and has at least a 2-point lead over the other team. At that point, that team will immediately win the game. Moving into the game, the last thing that the dealer needs to do is reveal the top card of the elemental deck to become the new title card. This card is going to tell the players which suit is going to be trump for this particular chapter. From there, then the game is going to start with the player to the left of the dealer choosing a card from their hand to play. And then it'll move around clockwise from there with each player playing one card from their hands. Once all 4 players have played a card from their hands, they'll determine which team won this particular chapter, and that team will receive 1 point for the first 5 chapters in a round and 2 points for the last chapter in a round, or the last card in the elemental deck. So with this, there's a number of different steps that are going to go into this. So I'm going to break them down into different layers that we're going to slowly stack on each other to make sure that everything is explained properly. So for this very first example, all I'm simply going to do is reveal the top card of each player's deck and show you how that is resolved. So let's go ahead and start here and just go around revealing one card from each player's hands. Now that we have all of the players have played a card, we will determine which team has won this particular round. In order to do that, you're simply going to look at the top number, and whoever has the highest number on their for the round is going to win that hand. So with this player, he played an F, so he would have the highest card out of all the players, so his team would have won that round. So he would receive 1 point, and then you would clear all of those cards and place them face down in a pile off to the side. Okay, so from here, let's go ahead and start building on this now. So let's go ahead and say, instead of this team playing this card, that they ended up playing this card instead. So now, when we come to the resolution of this chapter, again, we would look at those numbers to determine which team played the highest card, which again is going to be this team. But this time, since this team played a wind card, which matches the title card, this card is trump, which means that it is a higher value than any other card out there. So in this situation, then this team would have won this particular chapter and gotten the point instead of this team. Now, if you have multiple trump cards out there, so if, let's say that our team, had played this card instead. So now we have 2 trump cards out there, and then we would go off of the score of those 2 cards. So again, this team would win because they played a 5 versus the other team's 2. Now, if there's ever a tie in that, then it is going to be the team that played that card first, as there are going to be spells that are going to change the value of cards as well. So if both of these teams had played a 5 first, then it is the team that is closest to the dealer or that had played their card first, which would have been this team here that had played theirs. And the last layer I want to go over is the spell effects in creating a chain. These are going to be linked, as the first player during each chapter that plays a basic black bordered spell is also going to start a chain of that spell. Now, before getting into that, the one thing I do want to point out is that the title card is never going to start a chain, and it is never going to affect the chain itself. So with that being said, let's go ahead and move over to our player over here, as that is the first player that is going to go, since our player over here was the dealer. So during this player's turn, he is going to choose one of the cards to play from his hand. So let's go ahead and say that he had played that fire spell. So at this point, that player has played a basic black bordered spell, so it's going to resolve the effects of that spell at the bottom of the card. So this particular spell says that this spell has its power increased by 3 for each other fire spell on the chapter. Right now, there aren't any other fire spells, so that spell is just going to be a 2. But then from there, that player has also started a chain, which means that the next player to go in clockwise order has a choice. If they play a spell of that same element, so if they play a fire spell, they will get to resolve their effects of their spell and continue that chain. So going over to this player, let's see what that player has in their hands. So this player does not have a fire spell in their hands. So the one other option our player has is that they can play a white bordered spell, which is not going to be affected by the chain, but it is also going to continue that chain to the next player. A white bordered spell is never going to break a chain. Now, if, for example, our player chooses to play a different spell, so let's go ahead and say that we play this storm spell or this wind spell, as that is going to be the trump card, and obviously the main goal of the game is to win points. So let's say that our player plays this. So at this point, that would break the chain, as it is not the same elements as the chain is that the spell started the chain. So it's not a fire spell, so it is going to break the chain. So as a penalty to that player's spell is going to be silenced, so that player will not be able to carry out the effects of that spell. Now, there are going to be a couple of exceptions to this, as there will be some spells, such as this one, that say specifically that they cannot be silenced. So that player would still get to resolve the effects of this spell, which says that when played, all spells, including the title spell, are going to change to their original element and power. So what this means is that if there are going to be certain spells out there that are going to change the the title spell and other spells to different elements within there. So like we could say there might be a spell that will change this to a fire spell, in which case then the fire would be trump. So this spell is going to revert all of those changes back to their original form. So this spell would revert back to its wind form. So from there, this player has broken the chain. So at this point, for the rest of the players, they can play any spell and it will not start a new chain, but they will not be penalized at this point either. So let's go over to this player here to choose what card he's going to play. So with this player, he is going to play a wind spell as well. Wisp is going to allow him to look at the bottom card of the chapter deck to help gain some knowledge and hopefully plan for that to try to get the 2 points for their team. So from this player, that is the effect of that spell, and so then it's going to pass on to our final player, who is going to get to play a spell from their hands. And again, there is no chain at this point, so this player can play any spell and resolve the effects of that spell. So with our player over here, his teammate is already winning the hands for this round, or winning the point for this round, so this player does not want to disrupt that and in any way to affect that. So our player over here is going to... This player will play Quench, and with this one it says at the end, when the chapter ends, he gets to choose one other spell played this chapter and place it into his hand. So once everything is resolved, this player will get to choose one of the other cards to add to his hand instead at the end of this round. So again, at this point, this chapter is over, and we'll determine the winner by either the highest card, or again, if there's a trump, which there's 2 trump cards out, we would go on the highest number on that card. So with these 2 cards, the Storm has a 6, which is higher than Wisp of 5. So then this team would win, the team would gain another point, and then those cards are going to be cleared again at the end of this round. With this player getting to choose one of those cards, so he's going to go ahead and take Storm, as that's a high card. That's a good card to have. The rest of these cards, again, will be gathered up and discarded off to the side, kept face down, and no player can ever look through that deck. From there, then, our dealer will flip over a new title card, and again, then it'll be the player that won the last round, so our player up here will be the starting player for this round. So let me take you through another example. All right, so with this player, he's going to play Breeze, and this one is going to allow him, says, when played, you may exchange the title spell with a spell in your hand. So this one allows him to switch that spell with the one in his hand, so he's going to change this over to Water instead, and he'll add that card to his hands. Now, at this point, he did start a new chain, so this is going to be Wind. So with this player going next, this player will again choose a card, and he does not have any winds, but he does have a Radiant card. So he's going to go ahead and play that. He'll play one of his Radiant cards. This is going to continue the chain. And at this point, until a trump card is played, this is the highest card in the game. So going over to our player over here, now he is going to go ahead and play Flux. And this is the highest powered card in Wind. So now this player is winning the game as he has played a trump card and the highest trump card there is, which is Flux. From there, this card does not have any effect, so it doesn't have to worry about breaking that chain, which it did, as it is not a wind spell. So now the chain is broken. So then the last player to go during the round can potentially change things around if he has something. So then he is going to play Shift. Now this one says, when played, the title spell changes its element to Earth. So he has switched the title spell over to Earth and changed everything up. So at the end of this chapter, now we're going to determine the winner, which the title spell is now Earth, which means that he played an Earth spell, so he has trump card and has the highest number. So the team has won and has received a point for the round. So then all the cards are gathered up, again discarded off to the side, and the dealer will start off a new round with a new card. Now, when a white bordered spell comes up as the title spell, there is no trump for that round, and so the players are going to play just like anything else. Now, the one other thing I want to point out with this is if a player that starts a hand starts with a white bordered spell, then that player does not start a chain, and the next player to play a spell that is a basic spell will start the chain for that particular round. So white spells are not going to start a chain, but they're not going to stop a chain from starting later in the round from another player. This is going to continue going through the chapters until the players get down to the last card. With the last card in a chapter, that card is going to be worth 2 points at the end of that round, and then the players will gather up all the cards, shuffle them up, and choose a new dealer to start a new round. And this is going to continue going until one of the teams has 15 points and is at least ahead by 2 points from their opponents. If they're not, they're going to keep going until that is true, and at that point, that team will win the game immediately. Well, I hope you found this video helpful. If you have any questions or comments, leave those in the comment section below and I'll do my best to answer them. And thank you so much for taking the time to watch my video and leave me feedback on them. I do really appreciate it, and I take into account everything you say to make the best possible videos. Until next time, I'll see you later.